Hi everyone, and welcome back to another Brilliant Games. In today's video, we are taking a look at one of the most instructive attacking games I've ever seen. It was played in Brussels in 1991 between two very strong grandmasters, Artur Yusupov, which was one of the strongest Russian players in 20th century, renowned for his fine technique and determined approach, and also Ukrainian Ivanchuk, Vasily Ivanchuk, and he was one of the most talented players in modern chess. Unfortunately, though, he never did make it to the world #1 spot, although he was very close. So this game was in the rapid time control, so it was a bit of a more faster game, so the accuracy of the move played might not be so I guess high quality, but in the end the general game shows the gist of how you should play on an attack, which I thought was really nice. So let's start into the game. C4. Ivanchuk plays the English opening, and this opening usually pairs well with the Queen's Pawn opening, which is D4, and it's a completely fine opening move. Yusupov responds with E5, and this opening line is known as a reverse Sicilian, because the Sicilian defense normally is E4 and C5. So white moves their E pawn, black moves their C pawn. In the game, Ivanchuk plays C4 and Yusupov plays E5. So white plays with the C pawn, black plays with the E pawn. So it's sort of reversed. G3, D6, and at this point, both players just develop their pieces. Then over here, we have somewhat a strange move order. The fianchetto King's Indian has been reached, which is a line that's usually played after with d6 and knight f6 first, but in this case it was reached with c4. And at this point, I think Ivanchuk might have been a bit surprised by this, as Yusupov barely plays this opening line. However, this is completely fine for both sides. Queen c2, rook e8, d1, and c6. And now you'll notice that both players actually keep the tension in the center, because if you take the pawn, like if white, for example, if white takes black's pawn and black recaptures, this just helps black a lot. This central pawn is very strong, keeping a lot of squares under control, and this white squared bishop now stares into these two pawns, which forms sort of a wall and prevents this bishop from ever getting good. If, let's say, white plays a random move, like, I don't know, like king h1, and black takes on d4 and white takes, now this is actually not so bad for white now, because white has this good centralized knight, his future plans in the center, and this bishop is completely active. So let's go back to the game. This is why they both keep the tension. b3 was played, trying to get the bishop out this way. Queen e7, and bishop a3. Here, one suggestion by annotators was the move e4, and this move might have been more ambitious, taking more central control, and also it would also transpose back into a more normal King's Indian line. However, bishop a3 is also fine. e4, attacking the knight moves, and now since e4 pawn is attacked so many times, the only real way to move forward is with the move e3 here, striking forward. If white takes the pawn, that would be disastrous, as black's queen comes in, checks the king, and the attack is extremely strong. So here Ivanchuk replies with move f4. Now this is a bit of an inaccuracy because it sort of overextends on the king's side. In the future, black's plan is always to attack on the king's side, so with the move h6 and g5, they sort of create a hook with the f4 pawn. The attack sort of moves forward faster with this f4 pawn being a target. So a better move might have been f3, keeping the pawn structure more solid. Even though this bishop gets locked in, this bishop serves a better purpose, staying here and defending the king. A continuation might be knight f8 and knight g4, where white has a comfortable game, and his king is not in any immediate danger. So anyways, back to the main line, knight to f8, b4, bishop f5, so both players are developing the last pieces, king b3, and now h6. Attacking the knight moves back, and now knight g4, which sort of puts more pressure towards white's king. This knight is now within striking distance of the white king, and also now g5 is also a move, striking at this f4 pawn, which Ivanchuk moved forward. And this is sort of where you see why the f4 move might have been an inaccuracy. b5, Ivanchuk moves forward with his queenside expansion. targeting these 2 pawns with his long-range bishop. But here, Yusupov plays a great move, in my opinion, which is to completely ignore the queenside attack and push forward with his attack. This actually requires quite a lot of bravery and a lot of confidence in your own plan, knowing that in the long run, your attack will be way stronger than white's queenside expansion, and it would be okay to sacrifice a few pawns on the queenside if you can get your attack really rolling. bc6, bc6, now knight e5. An interesting knight leap, targeting the c6 pawn. The reason why black cannot take this knight with the pawn is because the pawn is actually pinned to the queen. So after this move, Yusupov knows that he has to continue his attack, so he just takes on f4, and then white takes on c6. Now you might ask, well, why doesn't he take with the bishops? Isn't this a fork? Like, both rooks are hanging, right? No, the problem is that black can counterattack the queen with this move. So you can't take the rook now because your queen is hanging. So you have to move the queen, let's say to a4. And now you can either move the rook, which is what maybe I would play, or you can even take the central knight. And after white takes back, you can continue and strike for your, with your attack. And this attack, the computer says, is a lot stronger than this rook, which I agree with. So Ivanchuk takes with the knight takes c6, queen to g5, bringing the queen closer to the king. Bishop takes d6, and now Ivanchuk is up a pawn, but the kingside attack is really steamrolling ahead. Knight to g6. Good move. You might ask, some of those more stronger players watching this video might ask, well, what about the move knight takes h2? The problem with knight takes h2 is that, the point of knight takes h2 is if the king captures back, which is a blunder, it's actually queen g3 check. And after king h1, knight g6, this position looks pretty bad for white. I mean, the knight is going to come to h4. The rook might transfer to e6 and then to g6. And then your position looks very scary, and your king basically has no defenders. And I would definitely take black in this position. It's super scary for white to defend. So what's wrong with knight takes h2? Well, the problem is white has what's called an in-between move. And so he takes on f4 with the bishop. Bishop takes f4, attacking the queen. Now the queen has to move somewhere. Let's say to h5. And after this move, white has to move knight d5. And then he's threatening to take on e3, he's threatening this check on e7, and black really can't avoid losing material. So going back, knight g6 was played, knight to d5, now queen to h5. It's a little bit of an inaccuracy because at this point, since the f4 pawn is defended, maybe knight takes h2 was a better move. But queen h5 is also not a bad move. h4, defending the front on h2. And now Yusupov decides, okay, enough is enough. My attack is the way I'll win this game. And to really break through, I have to do something now. So he plays knight takes h4, sacrificing the knight for 2 pawns. Now, actually, this is a mistake. It's not a very accurate move because the attack isn't very strong after this. And many notable grandmasters, when this move is played, actually criticize this in the press center because it's not a correct sacrifice according to them. The thing is, though, doing a rapid time control like this, which is a faster time control, taking these kind of risks and pressuring your opponent might pay off in the long term. So who knows? Maybe this was a smart decision. Takes knight h4, queen takes h4. And now you'll see the computer says, yeah, Ivanchuk is completely winning. But only with this move, knight c to e7 check. Because the computer sees that after knight c7, black has no way through with his attack, and then white just picks up the bishop on f5. Now here, Ivanchuk actually plays knight d to e7 check, which is a mistake, because the thing is, it's more logical to move your c7, your c6 knight, right? This d5 knight is better placed. It's better to move this knight over here and pick up the bishop. There are actually many theories about why Ivanchuk chose this knight to play to e7. Some people even speculate that he wanted to play knight c to e7 check, but he accidentally picked up the wrong knight. And because of the touch move rule, he had to play knight to knight d7 check instead, which is quite unfortunate. And so, if he had played the right move, knight c7 check, a sample light might go like this, where black's attack doesn't really lead to anything, and white is simply up 5 points of material. So knight d7 check, a bit of a strange move and also a mistake. King to h8, And now white picks up black's bishop and is now up 5 points of material. However, these 5 points of material don't really matter because of how weak white's king is. Think about it this way. Although white is up 5 points of material, which is, let's say, equivalent to a rook, let's say the extra rook is over here, but what is that extra rook doing? It's just sitting in the corner. And look at white's king. White's king has basically one defender, and now black is swarming in with all these pieces that are going to attack the king. And it's really the local superiority of the pieces that really matter in this position. It's the pieces that surround the king that's really dangerous. And it's not really the fact that white has an extra piece that matters, because, I mean, if you have an extra piece but can't use it, what's the point of an extra piece? And now Yusupov plays another great move, rook to e6. Now, the computer doesn't like this because there's this weird move, knight c to e7, trapping the rook, basically, and preventing rook to g6. But the idea of rook e6 is very strong, which is that you bring the rook to the g-file and try to attack the king for more. But now Ivanchuk finally makes the fatal mistake and plays the move queen to b7. And this is basically the nail in the coffin. And the computer doesn't even see it at first. The computer doesn't even realize what the winning move is. So here, Yusupov decides, you know what, Ivanchuk, you can take my rook. It's fine. This rook wasn't doing anything. What I'm really going for is the grand prize, and that is the king. And so Yusupov plays rook to g6, sacrificing the rook in the corner, and completely relying on his instincts that his attack will pull through. And now you see, after this move is played, the computer suddenly realizes that, oh yes, of course, rook g6, I definitely saw that. Like, the move was so good that the computer didn't even see that rook g6 is possible. Yeah, the computer's just completely waking up now. And you'll notice now that it's a local superiority of the pieces that really matter. You can be up a rook, you can be up tons of pieces, but it doesn't matter because you're getting checkmated. It's really the order of priority that matters here. So Ivanchuk takes the free rook, king to h7, and now there's a nasty threat. If white does nothing, like a3 is a nothing move, then there's actually a nasty checkmate here. With queen to h1 check, sacrificing the queen. Bishop takes h1 is forced, knight h2 check, king e1 is forced, and rook to g1 checkmate. I mean, that is just a foul mate, a vile checkmate. Jeez. So Ivanchuk is just forced to sacrifice his queen with queen to g8 check to stall the checkmate and prevents more material loss. So queen to g8, king takes, knight to e7 check, king 7 takes, takes, and takes. And now you might ask, well, how is black winning now? White is up 6 points of material, and black only has 2 pieces left to attack. Well, now, Yusupov plays another brilliant move, another genius, subtle attacking move, the knight to f2, and you suddenly realize that white's king is in a whole lot of danger. It is completely boxed in, and the simple threat with this move is just knight to h3, followed by queen to g1 checkmate. And there's nothing much you can do about it. I mean, this move is so subtle but so strong. It's just like the nail in the coffin. A quiet killer move. Bishop takes f4 is forced. You have to sacrifice the bishop to prevent checkmate. Knight e6 now. Now queen back to h2. Threatening knight h3 again. And there's nothing really you can really do. He plays rook b1, trying to maybe get into 7th rank, but it's all over now. Knight to h3. Queen g1 is coming. So it's almost over. Now you might ask, well, what if I sacrifice my bishop and run my king out this way? Won't I still have a chance? The problem with that is if you try to run your king e1, I'll take your bishop, keep running, and now I have a good move, which is queen to e4, and you suddenly realize your knight is hanging, knight f2 is coming, and there's nothing you can really do besides giving up your knight to prevent your king from getting slaughtered. So instead of that, Ivanchuk plays rook b7 check, checking the king, king to h8, rook to b8 check, giving up the rook to prevent the checkmate. Queen takes b8, and bishop takes h3, and now the final move to end off the game. With all this material left, and white and black only with their queen, is the move queen to g3, and there is nothing white can do to prevent queen to f2 checkmate. Think about it. You have 1, 2, 3 pieces on the board, but they're so uncoordinated. They're everywhere. And then you realize there's nothing you can do to stop Simple queen f2 checkmate. I mean, this game was just a masterpiece by Yusupov. He coordinated his pieces, he believed in his attack. He understood that the local superiority of pieces on the king side would in the end overpower White's defenses. And that losing all that material didn't even matter. It wasn't even bad for him, because the king in the end was the prize. After all, chess is about checkmating your opponent. And so if you really go for checkmate, it can be really, really deadly. And as the last bit of instructive material, make sure when you've decided how to play your move, make sure you pick up the right piece, like Ivanchuk might have done. Because in this game, if we remember, let's go back. This move, knight d7 check. Maybe he wants to play knight c7 check, and if he did, he would have won the game, but he simply picked up the wrong knight. And because of that, he later lost the game. So that's just one last thing to be aware about. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.